Sometimes you're lucky enough to see a movie where the talent just leaps off the screen at you, and you just think, whatever it is, this filmmaker has it. When I found out later what tiny resources Chris had, in fact, been working with, I was even more impressed. Chris is so talented that I couldn't say any filmmaker can do what he's done, but he has shown there's a way to make a film under the radar in Britain, and that conviction can make the film special. And that was from Peter Broderick in 1999. Peter Broderick, an independent film producer and the man that helped Christopher Nolan get his first film Following over the line through plotting a strategy to raise the film at festivals and money. Hello and welcome to Total 90s Recall. I'm Molly.
And I'm Chloe.
And this is the podcast where we are rewatching 90s films and asking ourselves, are these really as good or bad as we remember? And today, we are looking at Christopher Nolan's very first film, Following, from however you look at it, 1998 or 1999. We'll get into it. But Chloe, first, had you seen this movie before?
I had. I probably saw it about 15 or more years ago at a screening in some London cinema, probably sort of Curzon or something. And I honestly cannot remember very much about it. So it was really intriguing to go back in and rewatch it and remind myself about it. And especially fascinating to rewatch it, having seen all of Nolan's subsequent films and on the eve of the Odyssey being released in cinemas.
Yes, we should say at the time of recording, we have not seen the Odyssey, is not out yet. By the time this comes out, it will have just released the weekend before. I had never seen this, actually. I've heard of it. It's been like the myth, of Nolan. And a lot of like Nolanites or whatever I don't want to call them fanboys because I feel like that might degrade them, but we could use it. But
Aficionados.
That sounds more elevated. I like it. I feel like a lot of even Nolan aficionados don't talk about Following a lot or at all. But I think after watching this, which we'll get into, you can really see the filmmaker he's going to be and the themes that he's going to explore. And so that was really interesting. And yeah, it was giving me lots of 90s nostalgia watching it. In the meantime, let's get into our, like I said, a time machine. So this was originally released on the 24th of April, 1998 in the US. But then it was released in the United Kingdom on the 5th of November, 1999. So that's why I say, depending on how you look at it, it was a 1998 and a 1999 film. Its budget, Chloe, did you see how much its budget was?
The way that Christopher Nolan talks about it in later interviews is that it was a no-budget film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably they put it in dollars, so about $5,000 or $6,000.
$6,000, yeah, which is basically a no-budget film. But its box office was $126,000. So one would say that's a very profitable film.
Yeah. It's been profitable for him because it launched his massive career. He must have made billions in ticket sales at this point in his career.
Yes. This was, as you said, directed by Nolan, but it was also written and edited by Christopher Nolan. And that was so he could save money, essentially.
And he shot it.
He shot it. Thank you. He shot it himself. And again, like if you're listening to this is very, and you're like, what? That's crazy. Not really. I mean, back in the day, this was, especially in the 90s, it was very, for lack of a better word, like guerrilla. You do what you got to do to get it done. And sometimes that means you're doing 5 jobs because you're trying to get your vision, you're trying to be seen. So that's very typical for indie films, I would say, in the 90s. I think that is changing a bit. This was produced by his wife and business partner, Emma Thomas, whom he met in uni. And she is his producing partner, which is very sweet.
And she's very much the power behind his throne now. Like she's produced all of his films, I think.
Absolutely.
She's very much a powerhouse in and of her own right.
Yes. Starring Jeremy Theobald, Alex Haw, Funny thing, this is the only film he ever did. He was an architecture student doing drama and eventually graduated from Princeton, but he never did any other film. This is his only film on IMDb. Lucy Russell, who I know personally, well, sort of. We went to a similar acting studio. I don't think she would know who I am. But I know who she is. I saw her work. And John Nolan was the uncle of Christopher Nolan, and he was, I believe, an actor. You may be better.
Yeah, he was an actor. And his brother Jonathan is also credited as Grip. But he's worked with him a lot on many things.
Yeah. They would work together later in Memento, and as you said, on many, many, many other things. So, Chloe, a lot of people listening be like, following, I've never heard of it, let alone seen it.
Yeah.
So can you tell people, remind them or tell them the plot of this film?
Yeah, it goes without saying for all of our episodes, but particularly this one, this is going to be spoiled in our discussion.
Oh, yes.
So
spoiler alert.
I really would suggest go and rent it. I think it's actually quite easy to get hold of. Like you can get it from different streaming services. It's 70 minutes long. It's super short, so it is very quick to watch, and then you can come back and listen to this. But I'll just give a kind of breakdown of the story so that we're all on the same page.
Yes.
So imagining that all the listeners have watched the film, but they might need a refresher.
Yes.
Or they might just need to know what the hell is going on. So needless to say, this is told out of sequence, which we'll discuss later. The young man, he's never definitively named. He might be called Bill. He goes by the name of Daniel at one point, is explaining to another man that he began following strangers as inspiration for his writing. And we then see him following a man in a smart suit who's carrying a holdall. And this man is called Cobb. And the man he's following confronts him and reveals that he's a burglar. And then proceeds to introduce him to his sort of modus operandi when it comes to breaking into flats and nicking things. Meanwhile, the young man gets involved with the blonde. That's what her name is in the credits. She's never named. And she herself has been burgled. And she has a dark history with a gangster. And soon the young man begins to be drawn in above his head. Now, if we're going to just lay out what then happens, just as a reminder, so super spoiler warning, the blonde and Cobb have been in league with each other all along. They have set up the young man to commit a robbery, which goes horribly wrong. And then Cobb reveals himself to be working for the gangster all along to the blonde. He murders her and thereby frames the young man as the fall guy before disappearing, vanishing into the ether. All of this is told out of sequence. There is apparently a linear version that exists on the DVD. The other thing perhaps to sort of say about it is that it is shot on 16mm film, black and white. Apparently Nolan did this to save on lighting and ensure that there was colour matching because they were recording it over the course of a few months. They were shooting it every Saturday, basically. And they did a lot of rehearsal to ensure that they only needed to do a couple of takes and only covered strictly what they needed. So it is very much absolute no-budget film made on a real kind of shoestring.
Yeah, we can get into this now real quick, but I thought that was very smart. They just rehearsed this for 6 months, like a play, because, in a play, you don't get a second shot. You got one shot. They would go around London, and then when they find a location, like, okay, here it is. This is what we're doing. And then they would only take 1 or 2 takes, which again saves you on film. It saves you time. And when you're low budget, that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
So very smart.
Yes. And there's a great sort of, I guess you'd call it a documentary made by Vice in which Christopher Nolan talks about making following. And I'll link to it in the show notes. It's really worth watching because it explains what he learned through the process of making short films and this first feature and how it influences him now, both technically and creatively. A real kind of insight into how this self-taught filmmaker developed.
And so, Chloe, you had seen this before. Based on what you remembered and rewatching it, what were you surprised by? What was different than you remember?
Yeah. I had some vague memory that it was a film noir. So
Mm.
I was aware that that it's this very kind of emotionally cold, sinister film. There's this sense of kind of being alone in crowds. I had some idea that it was sort of twisty turny in terms of plotting, that there was double crossing. It was interesting to watch it, thinking about it in terms of the filmmaking.
Mhm.
And I think you can see those constraints of a
Yeah.
shoestring budget on the screen, especially with the action. Christopher Nolan's films often center on these amazing, really elaborately staged action set pieces now.
Yeah.
And it's a bit perfunctory in this. And the acting, you can tell that they're non-professional actors, at least at this stage of their career, and sometimes the sound is very noisy, shall we say.
Yeah.
But through those kind of rough edges, you can absolutely see Nolan's common themes and ideas taking shape. So things like memory, time, reality, or dreams, unreliable protagonists.
Yeah.
We can get into the detail on that, but I think it's really clear that also I had a lot of admiration for the fact that you can make something really ingenious or kind of special through narrative tricks, even if you have no actual special effects or expensive
Yeah.
technology available to you. The Odyssey he's just made is entirely filmed on IMAX cameras. It's the only
Mm.
film, I think, the only feature film to ever be made entirely on IMAX. It's incredible that he's working at that level now with that,
Yeah.
$250 million budget. But with this, it's about the script,
Yeah.
and that I think it really does show that necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
In terms of the actual story, I actually found it quite magnetic. I'd be really interested to hear what you think, because it leaves you confused for quite a while.
Yeah.
How did you find all of that?
So I will say, kind of piggybacking off that, again, constraint breeds creativity, and this
Mm,
was the definition of a constrained film. I thought it was very inventive, and it very much put me, as someone who lives in London, I was like, oh, I feel like I'm in London. Like, I know this
mm,
London, even though this is 98 London. Maybe it was filmed in 97, probably 98. This could have been filmed yesterday, right? So I thought
All
he did
those
a
sets, all the
yeah,
sets are people's
yeah,
flats, and they're kind of
yeah, and
scuzzy, aren't they?
and the streets. I'm like, I know those streets, right?
Mm,
So I thought he did a really good job of like putting you in. And I can't remember if it was the article that we quoted from or another one we were talking about, but that's what he talks about wanting. This is the London that he knows, and I thought he
mm.
did a really good job of that. So I was a bit confused at first, and and also it took me probably longer than it should have. What is he? The gentleman, the young man. We see flashbacks and flash forwards or present day, however you want to look at it. And at first I was like, is that the same guy? I didn't realize it was the same guy. So like, well done. I really thought he was transformed when he actually like shaved and put on a
Mm,
suit. So I was a little confused about that, and it made me honestly, what I kept thinking about is Memento, and I just kept
mm,
thinking, "This film walked so Memento could run." And I thought
mm.
that was the really effective part with Memento is, how they did a very skillful job about keeping you in the past, present, or current,
Yeah.
But that's I'm not knocking it. This also could be, like, just me and where I was watching it and stuff like that. I was a bit confused in the beginning, but then I was like, "Oh, okay, now I got it." And to be fair, I kinda get off on films and, like, books like that, films like
Mm.
that kinda make me work a little bit in the beginning.
It's
Um,
definitely, I mean, I think the confusion is intentional. You are deliberately being shown things out of context.
yeah,
And for example, he's suddenly got a black eye, or he's
yeah,
suddenly got a haircut and a new suit. And we're not meant to understand or know why that is.
yeah,
I think that works really well. Also, what stood out to me was the kind of moody intensity and the atmosphere. I
yeah,
think the score actually really
yeah,
helped, because it's quite synthy, but funnily enough, and maybe this is just because I'm stuck in the 90s, I felt it had aged quite well. It wasn't like the really kind of do synthy thing that you get in GoldenEye or the very beginning of A Few Good Men, where it's very much like, here I am on my keyboard. You know, it felt almost like it could be from nowadays.
Totally.
And it has a melancholy kind of piano to kind of ground it. And it has this rather screechy, high-pitched electronic element to the soundtrack, which makes you feel quite, you know, it's quite stressful. So I really like that. And I guess the kind of the moments where he's following or watching people put me in mind of, or have the same sort of tone as Nicholas Roeg's Don't Look Now or Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. That kind of roving sense of alienation, alone in a crowd feeling. I don't think it's as good as that, but it gave me that sense.
Yeah, which is interesting because obviously Eyes Wide Shut came out around the same time. You know, this would have preceded that. So it makes you wonder, like, was there anything going on at the time, or just happened to be two filmmakers feeling the same thing?
I think it's probably that I don't know about the Nicholas Roeg film, but I know that Christopher Nolan is really influenced by Kubrick. I think he's one of his favorite filmmakers. So
2001: A Space Odyssey talks about that. I think before we continue, like when it comes to Christopher Nolan, everybody's like, what's your favorite Nolan film? So Chloe, I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite Nolan film?
I don't know if I have one, because I go back and forth on Christopher Nolan, and I feel like I reassess his stuff. I just rewatched Inception last night because I hadn't seen it since it was out in cinemas. There's a lot to admire about his films. In terms of kind of gut reaction, maybe Memento, because that was one of the films that I watched and rewatched as a teenager. Do you know, I went away from him and I've come back. I wasn't that wild about the Batman films. I think they're pretty fine films. I'm not really a big superhero film fan.
Fair enough.
So then actually I've really rather appreciated his war films. So Dunkirk and Oppenheimer. And I didn't love everything about Oppenheimer. I felt like the black and white sequences, they just went on and on. I felt like they could be cut down. But actually, you know what? I feel like they're quite incredible films, and I really admired the way in which he created and staged Dunkirk.
How very patriotic of you.
Well, you know what? Like, if you're a Brit, then Dunkirk is a weird thing to be patriotic about because it's like our most noble failure.
But this is what I'm saying. It's the most British thing.
I think it's the idea of all the little boats.
Or
club joining together to get our boys out. But it's funny because when it first came out, there was a film critic that I followed on Twitter in the days of Twitter. And he was really dismissive of it. And he said that like the Churchill speech performed over the end was just really saccharine and way too kind of playing towards sort of too jingoistic, basically. And I kind of, I was like, oh, I was moved. And I think the reason why I was as moved is because it was such a horrifying moment. Like, I think we need to, you know, what Dunkirk does is it is a film that goes, we were alone. It's very hard to sort of say that without having to qualify it and say, obviously Britain had its various troops from different colonies, blah, blah, blah. But it was the last nation in Northern Europe standing, and the Nazis were advancing. And so this moment is really kind of a dangerous and dark moment in the British psyche. And so what if you can't get a bit emotive about that moment, like this great moment of darkness, then when can you? And I think Nolan does it justification, and I think he really enters into like the stiff upper lip spirit of it all, particularly in Tom Hardy's Pilot. So I think I'm going to go with that.
I think you're getting a little emotional right now, Chloe. I like it. Oh, Memento's a good one. I had my answer, and then you said that, and I'm like, maybe it is Memento.
You can pick Memento. It is
I'm not
a stunner.
I think, so the thing about Memento is, I mean, it was so groundbreaking at the time. And the way it played with non-linear storytelling. I'm not saying it was the first, but I think it was very effective, and it just blew people's minds, and it was so smart in how they made it. And as non-linear as it was, as I said, I was with it the whole time. Like, I understood, and it was in just like when things started like click, 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 it was like, oh my God. So Memento's a good one. I was gonna say, for me though, I think it's Interstellar. I love Interstellar. I love the soundtrack. I love that score. It's gorgeous. I think it deals with a lot of themes of grief, and it questions, what we are doing to our planet and what we are leaving behind. So I just think it's visually stunning. I'm not saying it's like, it's just my favorite. And then, but tied with, I'm going to be contrary to you is The Dark Knight. I do like some superhero films, some. And I think I just really thought that, when we think about superhero films before Nolan, they were like Spider-Man, they were X-Men, they were like comic book films, right? And what I liked about Nolan's take, and I'm not saying his is the right take, but what I thought was interesting is it's really grounding in reality. Like, what if this is really true? Like, what if, what's sad about it is, we thought billionaires were going to be Bruce Wayne, and actually billionaires are just Lex Luthor. But I really loved Dark Knight. You know what? I'm not saying it's his best film, but that's like, I think, as silly as it is, it's a comfort watch for me. Like, if somebody's like, oh, I want to watch a film, I don't know what I watched. You want to watch Dark Knight? I'm like, yep, absolutely. The thing is, I think I have now seen every single one of his films except for The Prestige. Have you seen The Prestige?
Yeah, The Prestige is really good.
And
it has David Bowie in it.
I know. I think I've just kind of pieced the plot together from people talking about it, and I know it's really good. But I want to watch The Prestige either again or for the first time. I think
I've seen all of his films, and apart from the Odyssey,
yes,
that's why I find it hard to pick then, because I'm not emotionally connected to many of them, but I do think that they are really rewatchable, and they are so well made. And actually, what I really admire about Christopher Nolan, because this is the thing, like, I went away from him partly because of the fact that he's so popular with film bros, and so I was a bit like repelled by the kind of people that like his films.
Yeah, fair.
And actually, what brought me back round was things like Dunkirk, Oppenheimer. I preferred Oppenheimer to Barbie. So just to be contrary, but I really admired the ending of Oppenheimer. I thought it was really a really beautiful expression of the horror that we live with, i.e. the nuclear age. And I think Christopher Nolan, like, we should protect him like the panda or something. Like, I think there's very few filmmakers.
Nolan, bro.
Yeah, I am. But here's why. Very few filmmakers left working in Hollywood today who believe in filmmaking the way that he does. He believes in the script and the story. He believes in working with actors. He often works with the same cast or similar cast members. He believes in practical effects. Obviously, there's plenty of CG imagery in his work, but he believes in if you can do a shot practically, then he'll do it. And he's someone, maybe Denis Villeneuve is probably the only other one who can work at this scale, and who is still grounded by story and character and giving the audience the very topmost cinematic experience. And he's not indulgent. Like, he is brilliant. And in that Vice documentary I mentioned earlier, he talks about the importance of learning to edit as you go along. Yeah. Like, his films aren't indulgently overlong. They are sometimes, epic, and they are quite long, but they're not. I don't get the indulgence. And they're not a load of CG slop for the sake of padding. For
Yeah.
like so many directors and filmmakers, I feel, and so much of Hollywood has sold out to the AI, to making things about brands and IP. And Christopher Nolan is like, no, I'm going to make the stories that I feel I want to make. And God bless Christopher Nolan for that.
Well, I mean, think if anybody else is like, I'm going to make a biopic about Oppenheimer
yeah.
and nuclear bomb, and I'm going to release it in the summer.
Yeah.
Think if it's anybody else, they'd be like, you're out of your mind. They'd
Yeah.
be like, nope, it's a December release. Nope,
Yeah.
it's in the summer release. And guess what? He was right.
He always wins. Like, he always shoots. He always
He does.
scores.
Because
You know?
he's proven, right? He's
Yeah.
uncompromising in his vision. He's
Yeah.
not a dick about it, right? He's uncompromising because he has a vision and he delivers on it. The thing
Yeah.
is, the reason that Nolan can get away with the things that he does is because his films make so much goddamn money.
Yeah.
So if they weren't making money, they'd be like, no, you're crazy. But they are. I mean, Oppenheimer was the second biggest film, and it was only surpassed by Barbie that was like a bajillion, but
Yeah.
it won Best Picture. It made money and it won Best Picture.
Yeah.
So, and I do like your note about he is very much into practical effects. However, I will say, but
Yeah.
I do have on a high authority that he does have more special effects in his films than he admits to.
Okay.
But anyway, but you
but-
can't tell. You can't tell. It looks
But they're used wisely. And I think
wisely, yeah.
And also the fact that he's making films that are original. I mean, Inception is a crazy concept.
Mad. I love it. Like, I'm on board.
Yeah.
Like, I'm down with it.
Yeah.
And like, I will talk to people about things. I'm like, oh my God, that's such an Inception moment. You know?
Yeah.
It
It has entered the lexicon. Yeah. And
It has.
I think it is also that thing of like, he's making original work or very ambitious projects. He could just rest on his laurels and not try. And there's so many directors that I absolutely love their earlier work and then they've dropped off.
Yeah.
And they've sold out to the man. But to me, it's like, here is a director who really wants to tell stories ultimately. And the reason why he keeps on scoring and having big hits is because he is committed to the story. He's committed to the audience. And if they all did that, they'd be rewarded. We know from the box office, all the films that have come out this year, the films that are really great storytelling and great world building and filmmakers with ideas that they want to commit to the screen to show to audiences. It's about that relationship with audiences, as opposed to, here's another fucking Star Wars movie spin-off that we're going to sell to audiences so that we can sell a whole bunch of lunchboxes to toddlers. Like, there's a difference, and audiences respond to storytelling.
When I think Gen Z or Z, wherever you find yourself, you know, they are responding to more original films and stories. They want that theatrical experience. You know, we thought during COVID, oh, theaters are dead. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
But what's actually showing is, I think also because people are starting to kind of detach because there's so much in their phones and virtually, that now people want to get out. And we're seeing that these original films are making the money at the box office. And I think take note, Hollywood, but that doesn't mean just, you know, copy and paste. You can't just copy and paste.
Yeah.
And I think when we're thinking about Nolan, watching this, you can see, oh, all of his other filmmaking makes complete sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really good springboard for talking about this film, Following, and let's talk about that structure of that storytelling, because it's non-linear narrative. I said it before. I think what elevates this from just kind of pulpy noir, which is a bit grubby, a bit sort of grim and, you know, miserable, is the fact that it's telling the story out of order, and it feels like a deck of cards that's being shuffled. So yeah, you don't understand the significance of certain moments. Early on, there's a shot of him coming to, and his mouth is stuffed with some rubber gloves and he's spitting them out, and it's just dropped in there, that shot, and you as an audience member are going, what? and you have to trust, you have to just give yourself over to the story, which is telling you things totally out of order, and then as you give it your patience, it rewards you by giving you more and more context. So like the earring, why is the young man rummaging in her piano store? He's looking for the earring. the earring that she already told him early on, she was nicked and she was left with only one. And then at the very end, you discover that this was all staged by Cobb
Yeah.
and that they already, he already went and found her earring and gave it back to her. And the whole thing was this elaborate ruse. Each detail, you kind of go, oh, that's another
Yeah.
piece in the jigsaw puzzle. And so as a viewer, you're lost in this maze the same way that the protagonist ultimately is. And I think also what's very clever is that the characters of the young man and ultimately the blonde have only got a partial view of things.
Yep.
And it's only at the end that they and we get the full picture. And to add to that, Christopher Nolan is shooting them through doorways or framing them in a way that cuts up the screen. So everything about the visual and the narrative storytelling is there to reinforce this idea of you're not seeing the whole picture.
Yeah.
I'll give you the final picture, the final thing in the very last frame.
Totally. And I think what I love about those kinds of stories, films, we see it in Memento. And I think that shot of him with the glove coming out of his mouth, you're like, what is that? And then maybe 2 scenes later, you see Cobb putting a glove on his hand.
Yes. And you're like,
oh,
keep
okay,
an eye
how
on
does
that.
You know, or at least I
Yeah.
did. I was like, I know somehow something happens and Cobb puts that in his mouth. I don't know
Yeah.
why. I don't know how, but I like that. I think it's why I like murder mystery stories and movies. It's a mystery and I'm getting little pieces, and then it's the end. You're like, oh shit, you didn't know anything. And to your point, it's like the blonde and the young man, they think they know. They think they're in on it. They think they've outsmarted Cobb, and they haven't. And again, you see this in Memento. You
Yeah.
see it later in his other work. Same thing with Inception, right?
Yeah.
You're getting little bits and pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it works really well in this to create this real sense of alienation and emotional distance, because you don't see everything in the normal run of things. You are literally alienated from the story and the characters' motivations and understanding what they're doing and why. It's very emotionally distant. It's very risky.
Yeah.
And it's betting on giving you the satisfaction of the ending where everything comes together. It really shows you that element of the non-linear narrative and the theme of time it runs through his filmmaking career like a stick of rock, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and it makes you think. I know we're talking about following, but again, I feel like this is like if you're paying attention to this film, this tells you a lot about Christopher Nolan and what he's going to want to do later in his career. Because I already brought up Inception, and what is the whole thing with Inception at the end? Everybody's like, was it real? Was he awake or was
Spoiler warning. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a spoiler to say, is he awake or is he asleep? Because that's like the big, we don't know. Well,
yeah.
We'll leave it ambiguous, right?
Yeah.
It's been brought up. But my point is, when we're talking about the following, like, is this real?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, I was left with a sense of this question of reality. And it's partly because at certain moments, I think particularly certain scenes when the blonde and Cobb are talking to each other, it's intercut with shots of the young man tapping away on his typewriter.
Yes.
And like he can't know what they're saying or they're doing, and it seems to be the case that he is entirely unaware of everything. But he says at the very beginning to the man that we then finally learn at the end is a police officer investigating murder. He says, I started doing this to inspire my writing, basically.
Yeah.
And I just got this strong feeling when I watched it again. I was like, is it the case that actually the young man is fantasizing the whole thing? Is he inventing everything that we see on screen? It's not really pushed either way. In Inception, the question of what layer of reality are we in? Are we in a dream or not? Is an insistent and urgent problem to be solved.
Yeah.
It's part of the plot. This felt like a little bit more like a Lynchian touch, like some Mulholland Drive
Yeah.
of could this all be made up? But also I felt like maybe I was bringing that to it because I like a thing that's slightly more ambiguous. And I feel like his films moving on from this are much more like puzzle boxes. Like once you click everything into place, you should, hopefully everything should be fairly clear, apart from, as you say, Inception. Spoiler alert, does the spinning top fall or carry on spinning forever? Is the spinning top even his token, his totem? We do not know. And all of that is open to interpretation, but it feels a bit more, there's a way to interpret it. Whereas with something like Mulholland Drive, who the fuck knows what's going on?
Oh my God.
And you're not meant to know because it's not meant to have that. It's meant to be dream logic, as in no logic whatsoever.
Yeah.
Arguably.
It's interesting. I'm with you. I did. There was a sense when we were seeing him write, I was like, oh, maybe this isn't real. But then by the end, when everything's being laid out and it's like, this woman's dead, I'm like, oh, no, I think this is real. But I will say, so Tony Raines is a festival programmer. He's a screenwriter. He's a British writer and commentator. He said the generic payoff is a little disappointing after the edgy character-based scenes of exposition, which I don't agree with.
I mean, I feel the payoff and that sort of that sense of like a double crossing and a triple crossing is inherent in the genre. And you almost want it in the way that if you go to watch a romance, you want a happily ever after. You know, or else you want a clever subversion of that. I actually found my expectations were played with this because I only had the vaguest sense of a memory of an idea, of a dream, that there was some kind of clever payoff to this, but I couldn't remember. And I was initially a bit disappointed because he goes back to the blonde and she just lays everything out to him. She's like, Cobb and I were in league. We set you up.
Like the evil villain does in every movie.
Yeah. Or this, like, she tells him the plot. And I was like, oh, it feels almost like Christopher Nolan has lost his nerve and he's having the blonde spell out everything for the audience. Like, I almost thought to myself, I wonder if someone interfered with this at some point and said, oh, no, I don't understand it. You've got to explain it. And then you have that second twist or third twist, God knows how many twists, where you realize that she's a stooge. She's only got a partial understanding of it. And everything is actually, she's part of the setup. She doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, there we go. Shouldn't have questioned you, Christopher Nolan. Shouldn't have questioned you.
Well, and also it wasn't a shock when you learned that. Sometimes there's these twists and you're like, what? That doesn't make sense. I guess maybe. But I was like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. That, she got killed because of what she witnessed. Right. And the blackmail. Like that all made sense. And I was kind of thinking like, why is she still like, why did the guy do that in front of her and she's still alive?
Yeah.
Well, she's about to not be.
Yeah.
Again, spoiler alert, people. I think we said that. I think you already said that.
I think it's that moment in which everything the sinking feeling in which she's realizing and you're realizing alongside her, and the young man back at the police station is realizing and being told her body was found this morning or yesterday or whatever. So it's that sort of thing of like the last little pieces falling into place, and then you look at the full picture and you go,
it's like,
it's
so obvious.
The very last shot of him kind of melting into the crowd is very artfully done, really good. And again, really works with the medium he's working in black and white and him vanishing into the shadows. They're very kind of saturated shadows. I don't know whether or not we are meant to question the reality of the entire thing, but I certainly felt as if there was room for it. And I was tempted to rewatch it again just to put it together a bit more in my mind.
Yeah. You certainly could. This is only an hour and 10 minutes or an hour and 9 minutes. So 2 of these is just like a normal feature-length movie today. So shout out to Christopher Nolan for being an effective and efficient storyteller.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I had another sort of observation about the theme of voyeurism. And again, that's why I think I was thinking of of the Kubrick, particularly
Mm-hmm.
Eyes Wide Shut. So
The Kubrick.
yeah, Kubrick. Second episode running that we've been
I
talking about
mean,
him.
there's a
Yeah,
reason.
he is important to all filmmakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of handheld camera, Nolan was actually holding that camera. He was doing the filming, but he said that it was not possible to kind of choreograph it or do any blocking or whatever. They just had to move the camera and opportunistically find the actor in the
Yeah.
crowd. And that does give this quite verite documentarian style that is kind of, well, voyeuristic.
Yeah.
And, the actors are being filmed at a distance amongst passers-by who are unaware. So that was really effective, I thought. But probably in terms of the actual dialogue, the standout moment is when Cobb is explaining his rationale, his reason for doing what he does to the young man.
Yeah.
And he talks about how he wants to invade people's lives in the most personal way. He's almost not doing it for the money. He's not that bothered
He's a
about fencing.
psychopath.
Yeah. Well, he's actually in the employ of the gangster,
Yeah.
but he's got this. He's really created an elaborate sort of idea around what he does, and he sort of says, and I think this is very Nolan. Like this is Nolan. His career. He says concealment, display, flip sides of the same coin. And he's talking about kind of interrupting people's lives. He says making them see all the things they took for granted. And he says you take it away and show them what they had. And this is the point of breaking in, entering someone's life, finding out who they really are. And there was a really nice quote from Scott Foundas of Variety in an essay for the Criterion Collection called Nolan Begins, where he says, at this point, in this moment of this dialogue, we are not far from Inception and its notion that invading someone's dreams can allow you to steal his or her innermost thoughts. So there is this kind of creepy idea of like getting into someone's space that is then developed in Inception of like actually going into someone's unconscious mind.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think, that the young man is the voyeur, right, in this. And so I think all those shots are like from his viewpoint because he is the one following, he's the one watching these people
Yeah.
and also invading people's privacy.
Yeah, and it's his fatal flaw, arguably. It's why he's the mark for these two. What do you think of the blonde?
I mean, she's the femme fatale, right?
Yeah.
So
like she is obviously, very generic femme fatale, but very consciously so.
yeah.
So I thought it's also really interesting the way in which she's filmed. So she's often shown getting ready. She's doing her makeup or she's dressing.
Her hair is wet. She's in a robe.
Yeah, and there's a personal intimacy to all of that, which again ties in with that voyeurism theme. And the things that are stolen from her are her earring and her knickers, even though they're MacGuffins, even though they're not actually, she knows they're being stolen.
Yeah.
But, she's very much, I think, consciously a callback to the kind of Hitchcock blonde.
Yeah.
Like Hitchcock it's often sort of stated, he would almost pose his actors. Like his actors were there to be put in the scene and to be, ordered about. And she's being artfully posed, like she's being positioned alone at the bar to kind of as a bait.
Yeah.
She's gazing at him in the mirror. There's this really nice shot where she's looking back at him and us. And then I really love this shot where he confronts her and his shadow falls in a kind of perfect profile over her face. So there's this real sense of her being posed. Then there's also like, he keeps on talking about how there's photos of her. She's got photos of herself all over her own apartment.
I know. What is that? Like,
yeah.
Why? That is weird to me.
So that he can find her, so that he can spot her. That's the thing. I think it's been staged to trap him into finding her.
Because they broke in. Got it. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
And to get a sense that he's interested in her, like she's attractive.
So it's a plot device. Not so smart, Nolan.
And he's got her passport pictures. He's often looking at them. He's following her. And then he's actually recovering some so-called incriminating photos of her that are not at all.
That are not all.
But I think the other thing is that she's styled like Marilyn Monroe, who
Very
is
much
the most photographed person of the 20th century.
The ultimate blonde.
And that is reinforced by the fact there is a picture of Marilyn Monroe on the young man's wall. So again, reality questioning, is she just a figment of his fantasy altogether? You know, like she's too artfully created and false. She lies to him anyway, but she's not playing the role that he assumed or she assumed. But like, is she actually just a figment, like a cardboard cutout to be posed in his fantasy drama?
Chloe, what aged well or what aged terribly for you?
So I do think that probably the treatment of the blondes is something that is a bit questionable. I do think that there is an artful intention to it, but Nolan has been accused of like leaning into the dead wife trope. And I think it's not entirely fair. Like in Inception, the dead wife played by Marion Cotillard is, you know, she's got a lot of agency. She's infecting all the dreams. But there is this sort of thing of female characters being killed off to create desire for revenge or motivation. I think another interesting thing is that Nolan reused the name Cobb in Inception.
Yeah.
And I wonder why. Like, do you have any theories on why?
He likes it. He likes it. A lot of filmmakers do that. It's almost like an Easter egg. It's like, oh, my other film.
Yeah. I just wonder if there's character similarities, you know, like Dom Cobb, who's played by Leonardo DiCaprio in Inception. He's a master of deception. And he's manipulating, you know, the fantasies of people. So I wonder if this is Nolan's nod to like, I'm coming back to this idea that, because I definitely felt like following Inception is probably one of the most related in terms of genre and themes. And it feels like Nolan's consciously kind of going, I'm coming back to this character and revising it and putting him in a different situation.
Yeah. You're talking about the what aged, you know, terribly. The blonde was giving me LA Confidential vibes of Kim Basinger. You think she has agency, but she really doesn't. You know, whether that's aged terribly, I guess that's kind of part of the plot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she could have been a man, right?
Yeah.
And somehow used as a pawn, but it just was giving me Kim Basinger.
She wouldn't
vibes.
work as a man, would she? She's got to be a honey trap, I think.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Everything would have to be gender reversed, gender swapped.
Yes. And I think the other thing that has aged well is a very strange, fateful thing. You could call it an Easter egg, but I think it is literally by coincidence that on the door of the young man's flat, there is a Batman logo.
I saw that. I thought the same thing.
Yes. And Jeremy Theobald explained why it was there. He basically said, some people call it ironic and some say it's prescient. I mean, I literally thought, I'm in a Nolan movie, but it was filmed in his own flat. And he said, I'd actually put up that logo in 1989 when I moved there. There was a film out called Batman that year.
Yeah, Tim Burton.
And so he was basically sort of highlighting that that's just the way they made the film. Like they didn't design any sets. They just made do with natural lighting in real sets. And Christopher Nolan talks about the fact that if you watch it, it's like all of the characters moved to the windows to be shot, to be lit. But it's just a really unlikely thing. The Batman logo is prominently in the background, and you're like,
did this inspire him? No, just kidding.
Wow.
I would say for me, what aged well is kind of also, it's related to most 90s or what was giving me 90s. I think what aged well is the filmmaking. I think the filmmaking aged very well. You know, to kind of segue to like most 90s scenes and lines is it was giving me very 90s vibes, the handheld camera, the black and white, the voiceover. I feel like a lot of those themes ran throughout the 90s. And that's, again, not a knock. It just, and the music, I wrote down the music is hurting me. And I think that's the point at the very beginning.
Yeah.
I don't know. What about you?
In terms of music, the reference to dinner party music that Cobb mentions when he's talking about CDs and cassettes that he's going to fence, he mentions Fleetwood Mac and Simply Red. Now, I want to know, did you have Simply Red in the States?
No.
Okay.
No idea.
Simply Red and Mick Hucknall I mean, Mick Hucknall was apparently a sex symbol at the time, but to me, they are synonymous with early to mid 90s, the things that your parents had on cassette. Stars was their massive hit album. I think my parents somehow had like 2 cassettes of it. Things like Phil Collins, No Jacket Required, The Lighthouse Family, M People, and Wet, Wet, Wet. Those were the soundtracks of middle-class dinner parties. And I don't think anyone from America or anyone under 30 will remember them, but it's like this lost world. And so when he mentioned Simply Red, I was like, oh, that takes me back.
I think we gotta leave a link either like on YouTube or our show notes to Simply Red.
Stars.
I don't know it.
Actually, some of the songs are quite good.
Oh, okay. And you saying that, like, obviously, like the CDs, like stealing the CDs and being able to sell them, very 90s, right?
Yeah. Photos. So the fact that there's a plot point that revolves around the young man kind of gallantly stealing back the photos and the negatives of these incriminating, but actually not photos of the blonde, that can only work in a pre-digital age.
Exactly.
And the credit card, the fact that you could commit credit card fraud.
By signing it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I remember what were people thinking that signing was the best way? I remember actually I could take my mom's card to a store and she would write a note to say, yes, my daughter has permission to use my card. She signed it. And as long as like her signature matched the card and I had an ID, I could use her card.
You could have just faked that. No.
Exactly.
It's mad. I mean, I think we're much more secure with pins and biometrics, but those were the days.
Those were the days.
Those were the days.
Okay, so as we're wrapping up here, Chloe, do you have any made up awards you want to give this film?
Yeah, I'm going to go with best use of duct tape. The young man strapping wads of cash to himself.
I'm sorry. I kept thinking, how is that money not going to rip up? Like, you're going to lose some of that money, right?
Well, I was thinking to myself, it takes me back to a time before we had, like, whatever they are, polymer banknotes.
Yeah.
But also, the gift of the Gab Award goes to Cobb for pretending to be, like, I don't know, an estate agent as he kind of scrams when the woman returns whilst he's burgling her flat. I thought, yeah, that's quick thinking.
Yes.
He lies to everyone.
He lies to everyone, and he was right. Like, she was with another man. Okay, so Chloe, as we round this out, critically, people loved this film. Is it worth returning to or watching for the first time if you've never seen it?
I think so. It's not going to play to people who are casual film fans.
No.
I think it's a sort of film that if you really, really love Christopher Nolan's films and you're a bit of a completist, and I'm an accidental completist because I've seen all of his movies as they've come out, essentially, apart from Falling, which I went back to as in my 20s. I think it's really worth seeing it because there's a real thrill, not only in the storytelling, but also in seeing the genesis of those themes, the non-linear storytelling, the obsession with time, the idea of memory. Like, it always comes back and forth. And it's really fun, I think, to see these themes coming in and out of his work throughout his career.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think if you are a Nolan fan and you haven't seen this, then definitely watch it. You'll see, you see breadcrumbs of his future work. And if you're not a Nolan fan, don't watch it. You probably won't like it.
If you don't like non-linear storytelling, stay well away.
Oh my gosh, if non-linear storytelling is not your jam, skip it. But I enjoyed it. I'm glad I watched it. And it's only an hour and 9 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Chloe, if somebody likes this film or maybe didn't like this film, what would you recommend somebody watch next?
Okay. So I'll do these in order of release. So I would say Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window.
Oh my God, that's mine too.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. I feel like we're going to have a lot of repeats.
We're going to have a lot of repeat. I mean, the thing is,
it's all good.
I said it because it has voyeurism and Hitchcock blondes and a noir plot.
Totally.
But I would also shout out to Vertigo, his next film.
I have that as well.
And I'd say that because it's much more ambiguous and it plays on memory and madness and doubling. So we're in agreement.
Yeah.
Go watch some Hitchcock.
Go watch some Hitchcock. I'll go ahead with Vertigo. the blonde, like, who is she? Like, it's very like her identity is not quite clear. Same thing in this. I feel like there's a lot of running around in Vertigo. Same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It felt, very, not manic is the right word, but it's like, what is going on is a
Yeah.
theme both in Vertigo and here, and also in Rear Window, as you already said.
Yes, absolutely. Then skipping ahead many decades to 1995, I thought you should probably watch The Usual Suspects, directed by
Great.
Bryan Singer.
I don't have it down, but I completely agree with
Yeah,
you.
I mean, the end. I just want to say, like, the ending put me in mind of this film, and I don't want
Yeah.
to give it away because, if you
No.
don't know it.
No.
But
It will ruin it for you.
I will say, yeah, I won't give away the big twist, but it stars Kevin Spacey, Gabrielle Byrne, Benicio del Toro, Stephen Baldwin, and Spacey is this con man who's being interrogated by a police officer, so not unlike Following. He's being interrogated about a big violent incident that happened earlier, and he weaves this shaggy dog story centered on a mysterious crime boss called Kaiser Soze. And who is Kaiser Soze? So I think you have to, like, these two films, Following and The Usual Suspects, I think they really share a lot of DNA.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of films that involve people being seduced and being kind of tricked, then I had a really random thought, but I came up as I was watching, which is The Wings of the Dove from 1997, directed by Ian Softly. It's based on a 1902 Henry James novel about a penniless young woman, played by Helena Bonham Carter, who plots to get the man that she loves, Linus Roach, to seduce a young but terminally ill American heiress, played by Alison Elliott, for her money. And it's got really beautiful cinematography of Venice and all the things you might expect from a costume drama, but it has this very kind of dark cruelty about the deception of an innocent. And that led me to think very briefly about The Talented Mr. Ripley from 1999.
Good. Yeah.
Directed by Anthony Minghella, one of his great films. It's based on 1955 Patricia Highsmith novel. It stars Matt Damon, who, of course, stars in The Odyssey.
Yeah.
As this conniving con man who inveigles his way into the sort of gilded life of a rich playboy, played by Jude Law. And again, beautifully photographed, exquisite costumes. It also stars Cate Blanchett, Gwyneth Paltrow, Philip Seymour Hoffman. And it has all that kind of unsettling darkness of the classic noir, but it's this really gorgeous period Italian setting that makes it, I think, even more intensely cruel. So, yeah, and I will just say that if I was going to recommend a Christopher Nolan film, see above in terms of Inception, but also Memento. And I think
that was mine.
That's yours. So explain to the listener why.
I mean, I was going to say, we've kind of already said it, but if you like this film walked so Memento could run. And it is, as I said earlier, at the time when it came out in 2000, it obviously was not the first non-linear film that had ever come out, but it was very, I don't want to say earth-shattering, but it really just it kind of blew people's minds at the time. They did a really effective, the way they edited it and cut it, even though it was non-linear, you get it. You're with it. And like this film, there's a lot of little crumbs are settled and then everything starts to kind of settle into place. And like his later films in Inception, at some points you may think, is this real? At the end of Memento, you are wondering what is the truth and what is not the truth. So yeah, I think if you liked this, go watch Memento. He wrote it with his brother, Jonathan. So yeah, that's it. That is Christopher Nolan's first film following, the only Nolan film we'll ever do on this podcast because it was his only 90s film, sadly. And so when you are in line for the Odyssey, which I want to say real quick, we didn't say this, but Nolan was originally considered to direct Troy and ended up doing Batman Begins instead. But when you're in line to watch the Odyssey, tell the people, hey, you know what? There's this really cool podcast, Total 90s Recall, and they just did a podcast. They just did an episode on following Nolan's first film. Oh, you don't know about it? Listen to their podcast because likes and reviews really help our discoverability as we are new podcasts. So do that wherever you're listening here. You can also email us at total90srecall@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, Total 90s Recall, Total 90s Recall. Follow us, watch us on YouTube. Really loving the comments and appreciate the comments on YouTube. Keep them coming. I am Molly.
And I'm Chloe.
And we'll see you at the Odyssey.